Just what are your main motives, though, for coming into full communion? Because people talk about the fact that you need to be ordaining new bishops, and that is one of the reasons why there's an urgency. But what is your take on that? What is your response to that?
So let's say first, we have always repeatedly and constantly said we are not outside of the church, and so we maintain that. Let's say we have all the elements which are necessary to what was understood in former times as being the communion, so to be in communion with the church. I may say that with the Council they have invented a new sense to that word communion, speaking of full communion, of partial communion, which is very confusing again, because let's say the normal Catholic would understand with the word communion the old way, that is, either you are in or you're not. It means you are schismatic or you are Catholic, period. Now they have introduced this not in full, where you no longer know what it is really. And so we just claim that we have the right to be labeled as Catholics. Because we are, because we recognize the authorities and because we recognize all these elements necessary. That's the first point. But besides that, I do not seek this regularization, canonical regularization, as an absolute. For me, it is given, it is a right to have it, but we are not going to compromise, to hurt the faith, the discipline of the Church, to get that. Say we consider it as an injustice not to give it to us, so we claim our, so to say, our point of view. That's all. That's all. And so if we are put in a choice between, let's say, keeping the faith or making there a compromise, it's clear what we are going to do. We are not going to compromise.
Because this is the concern, isn't it, of some, I'm thinking of Bishop Williamson, for example, who thinks that you're going towards a certain modernist tendency just by becoming part of the conciliar church. What do you say to that? Do you think there is a danger? And what safeguards are there to prevent that danger from being realized?
I may say there are dangers everywhere. The situation, the general situation of the Church is very, very risky right now. Let's say you have dangers everywhere. I always describe our situation as the one of being on a, how do you call that in English, on a crest. You are on a mountain and you have two abysses, one on your right and one on your left. And if you put your foot either, say wrongly, too much to the right or too much to the left, you fall. And I may say the devil doesn't care on which side you fall. What matters for him is that you fall. And I consider almost as a miracle that we did not fall till now. And let's say we pray that we may not. So, no, Bishop Williamson's perspective is totally wrong. He thinks, well, first that we want to compromise, that we want this at any cost. And then, the second point, he says that we will be under the influence of liberal people, and as there would be the authorities, we would necessarily go into the mainstream. And once again, that's not for us an option. So we ask, we request from Rome for guarantees that we can continue the way we do.
And have you seen guarantees which you could accept being put forward, or not yet?
I think, let's say, the more we go, the more lenient Rome goes too. And that's why, let's say, now we start to speak about getting closer That's because Rome is little by little giving or granting what we see as a necessity. And what they also start to see as necessity, given the situation of the Church. It's not the whole Rome, it's a part, it's let's say the most conservative, which are totally appalled by what's happening in the Church.
And given the confusion in the Church now and the discontent among those on the conservative side, as you say, do you think that do you see yourselves as perhaps coming to the rescue of the Church in some way?
Some in Rome say it to us. Some will not use the word rescue, but help. And definitely, even in the proposed document, it is spoken about this. And so it's not we who invent something. It's really, let's say, the situation of the Church is catastrophic. And I say, finally, now, in this catastrophe which is increasing, you have voices who start to speak, and also people who approach us and try to consider our position as no longer so bad as it was looked at before.
And do you see, perhaps somebody said that it's almost like God, if you did come into full communion as Rome sees it, that it's almost like God's mercy being shown to those who are very upset and very, very uneasy about the whole situation in the Church now. It's a kind of a sort of merciful hand of God to bring you back in.
I am persuaded that, let's say, God has not left His Church, where He allows trials, but He's always there. And it's always a little bit difficult before to give such names or labels, but for me, let's say, the fact that we are not condemned in that situation, which is really paradoxal, because we are like we are, we have not changed anything, and so we continue to denounce what is happening, and nevertheless, you see this movement in favor inside Rome. Well, for me, yes, I do see the hand of God in that. And that in that sense, if that would happen, I'm not yet sure, definitely it would be a good sign of the mercy of God, yes, for everybody.
And you said that you like this Pope in many ways, and is that true, that certain aspects of this Pope that you like? The Holy Father is totally atypical. And the problem we have when we approach him is to try to put him in one of these categories we are used to. And I may say one of the major problems is that the normal way of judging someone is getting from his actions and conclude he's acting like this because he thinks like that. So to go back to a doctrine or sometimes an ideology. And if you try to do so with the present Pope, you are totally puzzled, because one day he does something and the following day he does almost the contrary, or says. So that what is one of the most confusing points about the present Pope. And I think we have to understand that his approach is not at that level. He said it several times. He said that he did consider the doctrine as rather an obstacle in dealing with people. For him, what is important is, he said it, life is the person. And so he tries to look at the person, and there, I may say, he's very human. Now, what are his motives? You see, once again, we always try to look there. For me, he appears as someone who would like to see everybody saved, to see everybody have the access to God, and who, like a rescuer, who
at the end, unties the rope, which is the security, to put himself in a risky situation to try to get to other people. And I may say, probably that's also what he's doing with us. Let's say for the modernist, he certainly has untied the so-called secure rope to get to us. And himself well said it to us that he had problems with some people in the church because of his approach. But he's using the same approach to everybody who is on the side.
But it's interesting though, isn't it? Because I think a lot of his criticism, his harshest criticism, is always for what he calls the doctors of the law and those who he considers to be sort of Pharisaical. Now, some would say that he's talking about the society, and but what do you say to that? That in a sense, he seems to be most angry against people.
Yes, well, I even asked Rome, some people in Rome, who is he aiming at? And they didn't know. They didn't know what to say. They said, maybe you, but, well, the answer I got was, most probably conservative Americans. So, really, frankly, I don't know. He definitely dislikes people who would be too ideological. That's very clear. That's very clear. And I think he knows us enough from Argentina to see that we care about people. Yeah, we may have a very strong position on the doctrine, but we care. And so we show a genuine, so to say, action following this doctrine. And I think what he's reproaching is not that. So certainly he does not agree with us on these points, which we are attacking in the council. Definitely he does not. But for him, as the doctrine is not so important, the people are important, and there we have given enough proof that we are Catholics. So you see, that's the approach he has.
And you say that he sees the SSPX as sympathetic to his concerns about a self-satisfied established church that no longer looks for the lost sheep.
I would not go even so far. He just sees that we are genuine, period. And so he certainly sees things he disagree with in us, and probably would see us to change. But for him, that's not the important. The important is to love Jesus.